Today I'm having a gas with Chris Hawkins, broadcaster, presenter and DJ, a unpretentious, informed, charming voice of radio. Yeah. Podcaster, how to DJ, hopefully talk about that later. Graham Massey, 808 State, Manchester legend.
Yeah.
Mark Radcliffe was on there.
Yes.
Yeah. Superstar. Fatboy Slim.
Yeah.
Chris is also a Coronation Street aficionado.
Big fan.
Chris is also a Shrewsbury Town football fan.
Yes, lifelong.
Chris, if you know him, being all over the place at the moment, your star is generally on the rise. It really is. And one bizarre fact, just to set the icing out, is you have a phobia of fruit and vegetables.
Yeah, kind of. Not really.
Not really.
It's a wiki thing.
So we can dismiss that straight away, can we?
100%.
Can I do what I'd like to do as a quizmaster then, and just go straight into a either or, set the scene to kind of get a little bit more, and then we'll get into what I thought was a reasonable agenda.
All right.
Okay. See, the first one, I was hoping for a bit of comeback on fruit and veg, but, you know, you've kind of blown that out of the water. Marmalade or jam?
Oh, right. Marmalade.
The Smiths or Joy Division?
What's this going to lead to? What will this say?
Just whether we're going to get on.
Joy Division.
See, we're already winning. The Sopranos or Succession?
Succession. Because I haven't seen The Sopranos.
Oh, wow, that's another... De Niro or Pacino?
Oof. How much is there to choose between them? De Niro.
That's a winner. New York City or London?
I lived in London for more than 10 years and I loved it. But I love New York too. I'm going to go with London.
Okay, well... Frank Sinatra or Elvis Presley?
Elvis.
Oh, wow. See, my wife she took about 10 minutes onto that one. Ken Barlow or Jack Duckworth?
So that's like legendary status versus comedy value. I'm going to go with Ken Barlow.
Controversial. A curry or a pizza?
Curry.
And would you rather be DJing or dancing and drinking to the DJ?
DJing. I can't dance.
Okay. Terry Wogan or John Peel?
Impossible. I'm not choosing between them.
We'll leave it there. Okay. Well, having set the scene to get started, how did you get to where you got to?
So I, from a very early age, was fascinated by radio and the way that the presenters spoke one-on-one to me. And I was fixated by it as a kid, the radio, and always wanted to work in it. I never wanted to do anything else. And extraordinarily, I never have, apart from I had a bar job for one night because as well as being a fan of radio as a medium, I loved music as a kid growing up. And the only other job I've ever had outside of radio, paid work, was a night in Shrewsbury when Edwin Starr came to town. And it was sold out, and I really wanted to see him. So I begged the place that he was playing for a job, and I worked behind the bar for one night only, just so I could see Edwin Starr.
That first step.
Yeah. So I did work experience at BBC Radio Shropshire, which was my local radio station growing up. And from there, I never went away, really. It was in the days before any kind of ID and security passes.
Right.
The door was kind of always open. So after my 2 weeks of work experience, I carried on volunteering until they started paying me. And at the time, my mum had to take me in because I was only 16. I couldn't drive. And from there, after my A-levels, I did a year in America. I got a scholarship to go to a high school in America. Came back and went to Nottingham University and started work at BBC Radio Nottingham just before I started university in Nottingham. And I went there because it had such a great reputation as a local radio station. A lot of good people had come out of Radio Nottingham. So I started working there, and by the time I finished university, I was doing the drive time show.
Wow.
And on a couple of occasions, left my finals early so that I could go and do the sports news on the drive time show. which I then went on to present full time.
Wow. Very cool.
And then moved to London.
Seamless.
Well, kind of. I was lucky. People at Radio Nottingham knew people at the BBC in London. I was desperate to be at, it was then called Greater London Radio, GLR, the BBC's radio station for London, where people like Chris Evans and Danny Baker and Mark Lamar and Phil Jupiters and Sean Hughes and Chris Morris, they were all there, and I wanted to be at that radio station, and I managed to get a gig there. And that's where my friendship with Gideon Coe started. I was a fan of his to the point when I was at university of a girlfriend at the time, her sister lived in London, and she used to send me cassettes of Gideon's shows, record the shows for me. And Gid's now godfather to my daughter, and I'm godfather to his son.
Cool. Beautiful. So, right, a lovely man.
Well,
so picking up on that, so the cluster of superstars on those radio shows. Then, how do you feel being when it comes out and they're going through the superstars? I'm a fan of all of it, of radio.
Yeah,
I love your show because it is, you're unpretentious and informed, and it is that thing we hear all great DJs saying. You're one-on-one with that bloke when you wake up in the morning with your brew, having a chat.
Yeah.
Now, you're then in the cluster of it's Lauren Laverne, if it's Steve Lamacq and Zane Lowe and Chris Hawkins. Just those are the four big hitters.
I've never really thought about that before. I feel genuinely still as lucky and as privileged to do the job that I do now as I ever have. And I think to even be mentioned in the same breath as those names that you've just named feels a bit goosebumpy for me. I feel very lucky. I get to do the job that I love every single day, and I've never taken it for granted. I love what I do, and I don't know anything else.
Beautiful. Okay. Two things I wanted to talk. Obviously, we're a music business, or we think we are. And I wanted to talk about audio branding. We do music for ads. We've just done the Euros, which we mentioned. We've just Herbal Essences and Gillette. So that's our world. And as clunky and as uncreative as some people may think it is, it isn't. We have to work hard to make sure it sounds right.
Yeah.
Six Music has its own sound, doesn't it? It's got its own identity. How did that come about?
So I was involved in the test programs. Six Music is at its very heart and core about it's about the music that we play, and it's about music for those that are passionate about music, for people that want to find something new. And that doesn't have to be a new artist. Mm-hmm. It's equally exciting on the radio to play an artist, say, let me just pluck from the air, Jeff Buckley, say, and for someone to get in touch and say, wow, I'd never heard Jeff Buckley before, and I've now gone down a rabbit hole. That's as exciting as saying, here's the new one by Shy Girl, who I happen to be a big fan of. So, there are two sides to the way that we play music. I hope that we are an open door, that the breadth of shows on Six Music really does mean I believe that Six Music is the best music radio station in the world. And the hosts, some of whom you've named, but from Huey to Don Letts to Lamo to Keris,
rolls on, doesn't it?
It's a who's who. Yep. And each of us, I think the one thing that we all have in common, we're all the sort of different but the same, in that we all love music and we love sharing the music that we love.
Cool. So then on the curation then across the gamut of Six Music, you're driven by a particular playlist?
It's unusual as a station in that, particularly these days, there are very few radio stations where the DJs have full and final say on what's played. And that's an incredible position to be in. And it comes with the responsibility. There are times when you can't believe that you're getting to do a premiere of something brand new. I just this morning played the new song by 07. Well, I've always been a fan of 07s. So for them to say, will you do an exclusive first play of our new music, then Wow, yeah, of course. And that happens on a fairly regular basis. It's exciting. It's an exciting station to be a part of. And we have a very, very loyal set of listeners who have become part of a real community. A lot goes on outside of the radio, if you know what I mean. There are listener meets, and at festivals it's particularly obvious when you come
you
across...
have your name shouted at the end of your show.
When you come across a set of Six Music listeners, it's just like the best time, because it's like being with mates, even though you've never met before.
Yeah, great. It's a great ingredient. So, on how much choice do you have per show? Bringing out, say you're coming in and somebody's giving you play my record, and you love it. Do you have any sway? Been able to put that record on?
Yeah,
great.
That happens regularly. Yeah. I mean, the days of going to gigs and being handed CDRs are less, but it does still happen where a band will turn up with a pocket full of CDs and say, oh, can you play this on the show? And I try to listen to everything. We get sent, I'm going to say, like 100 new songs a week. That's a lot of listening, but that for me is a big part of the job.
Yeah.
And partly because who wants to be the one that misses out on the next Coldplay?
Good to hear Chris Hawkins talking about FOMO in this modern world.
Yeah, well, it's important, isn't it? Because that is a really big part of what Six Music does is break new artists.
Yeah, I'm glad you've mentioned it's okay to play something old, but you're bringing something old to a new audience.
Yeah, I mean, I love David Bowie. I love Talking Heads, and that's always great. But I can't do that. I can't play Bowie and Talking Heads on every show. I mean, I would if I could, but it would just become a bit ridiculous. And there's a lot of music.
You never know. You could do a special. So, if that's the sonic branding, say, of Six Music, because it does stand out.
Yeah,
it does.
It kind of shouldn't work, but it does. It's not a commercial format where you very much know what you're going to get if you're listening to a particular commercial radio station. With Six Music, the opposite is true. It would be, I guess, an advertiser's nightmare.
Yeah, I'm just trying to put that into our world of advertising. But the product you're selling is what you're playing. So it's an advertiser's dream world.
True. Yeah. That's why I don't work in advertising.
Okay, no, it's good, but that's why we help each other get along. So what's the Chris Hawkins brand? As it was to put your DJ hat on?
I don't know that I have a brand as such. It's a guy who plays songs on the radio. I get paid to talk in between songs.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I've been surrounded by lots of DJs in the past, and even did a little bit myself.
Yeah,
and it would be something not too dissimilar from this. Ooh, if that works, then this works. If that doesn't work,
yeah.
You still in that world?
Yeah, I mean, that's not false modesty. That is genuinely what I do for a job. I talk in between songs, and I try to make sure that the songs flow nicely in a good order, and that's the same in the studio as it is when I'm DJing out.
Do you have a list of killer songs? Do you go to aces to play?
I mean, I've only ever done what I do, so I don't have a list, but in my head, I feel like I know what will hit.
Greatest gig you've ever done?
That changes year on year. I did the launch of Co-op Live recently, earlier this year, before any of the issues arose, and that was pretty awesome to do, the biggest arena in the UK. I felt pretty cool. I hosted the Northern Music Awards. I was very proud to do that recently. With a kind of glitterati of stars from the north of England on stage and me hosting. Big festivals, Bearded Theory, not so long ago. I always loved playing on the main stage at Kendal Calling. I'm very lucky.
I know. How does that feel?
It feels amazing. Just fucking amazing. It's brilliant. I say again, I'm just very, very lucky. I get asked to do nice things and I say yes to them because this is my dream.
Cool. Are you a musician?
No.
Wow.
I can barely even hear in time.
I'm just looking for some support over there. Well, congratulations. It's immense. So So if that's audio branding, music supervision, that's the other thing we do, trying to find great records to put on a commercial to help sell that product.
That's interesting. It's something I've always wanted to do is soundtrack a TV show. So I feel like I am living my ambition because this is all I ever wanted to do, and it remains all I ever want to do. But as a something else, then I would love to do a soundtrack for a TV show or a film.
Okay, so that's you're kind of putting out the hook for them for a collaboration sometime.
Those things kind of just tend to come about quite randomly, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
So I don't know. I feel like sometimes when I watch when I watch TV or watch a drama or comedy, I think I could do a comedy, soundtrack a comedy quite well. I sometimes think, oh, that's brilliantly chosen, brilliantly timed. But I do sometimes think, I would have done that there.
Okay, good. Can you think of any TV commercials at the moment which have got a great piece of music on?
At the moment with it.
Or go on any time.
I would only, I'm afraid, cite the obvious classics, the Guinness adverts.
Guinness Surfer, yeah.
Yeah, is that what you would consider iconic?
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, it goes against the grain of, there was a lot of pain and suffering behind that to actually get them to actually say, yeah, we're going to use Left Field's Fat Planet.
Was there?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Why? Because it was at loggerheads with what they wanted. You've got waves, and what's missing? There's no sound design of the wave.
Interesting.
And then you've got the guys running on, and there's nobody shouting. I think when we do a music masterclass, and when we use this as an example to say, this is working for all the reasons we now view of it being great. But coming up to it, they were expecting, it needs to have sound design. Is it the right track? What's it doing? It's just doing a doom-ba-doom. It's just that. So we would then say, this is what would happen now if Guinness came to the creative world now to say, give us a soundtrack. They'd have Point Break, with Keanu shouting his head off and all that big bombastic noises. They wouldn't let it be its creative, wonderful self. It's a real challenge to actually get that right piece of music in there.
That's fascinating.
So how much do you think you'd pay for that?
How much would I pay to use Changes by David Bowie on a TV ad? Yeah,
in the UK for 1 year.
Wow, I'm a long way out of my comfort zone here.
Good.
I mean, what this is doing is bringing to mind so many different issues around licensing and around streaming and the way that artists get paid now. And I know that syncs are a great source of revenue for artists if they can get them, and that it's a part of labels and management's offering to artists is syncs.
We know him and we know each other, and it has an intrinsic value, but your world and kind of our world is the whole bunch of independent artists making great music.
Yeah.
So let's get that on TV. That's the challenge. That's what we're trying to get to, just trying to address this balance, because they need the money more than they do. They need the exposure more than they do.
So I will, on my show, I use a minute-long talk-over bed by a band called Dirty Nice. And they get paid every time that music gets played. Of course they do. But I don't know how much. My guess is that it will have barely bought the two band members new pants.
But if they get a sync on TV, it's a whole different ballgame.
I'm going to guess for how long would it run for?
1 year. 1 year on UK TV.
1 year of Bowie's Changes on a skincare ad. £250,000.
Okay, it's a good guess. The copyright would be 150.
Okay,
and then you'd have to either remake it or try and use the master.
So that you mean to use the song?
To use the song, yeah, 150. So we're going to go on Bruce's challenge then. So you're starting at 150. The next one Chris is looking at is Lucky Man by The Verve. Same thing, 1 year, UK TV. Higher or lower?
Well, I suppose in the grand scheme of things and hierarchy and all that, is it complicated by the fact that The Verve was a take on the Stones? So I'm going to say a little lower, 100.
Everything was right, but bizarrely,
What?
yeah, it was 350 per side for that. Richard decided to re-record the whole of Urban Hymns, so he owns all his masters.
Wow.
Wow.
Lucky man.
Indeed, thank you. Comedy coming through. Eye the Tiger. This is it's on Ferroliquid ad at the moment.
I mean, that's got to be one of those songs that just keeps on giving. From soundtracks to ads. But I think this is probably in the pile because it's a surprisingly small amount. Like, for whatever reason, it's somehow got out of copyright or something. 50 grand.
50 grand, not big. Good thinking. It's very affordable.
Is it?
Well, in terms of how much they turn over, sales of Ferroliquid, got to be in the billions. It's on TV at the moment. Song 2 by Blair.
What's that on?
Right Move.
I'm trying to think how it would be different and what that would be based on. Can you give me a little bit of context as to how I would come to my conclusion?
There is no real rhyme or reason. Sometimes it's as much as you can get away with. So this, does it fall into heritage? What was this? What makes a track a heritage track? And then, how much then resonance does it have now? And
I think it's when it gets played on radio too.
And it still gets played. So I think it's still relevant.
Yeah, it's still a banger. I'm going to go with £100,000.
225.
It's funny when I get to interview, I'm going to call them heritage artists now, because you have, after many, many years of doing the radio, like 20 odd years of being on the radio, I feel like I've paid for a lot of holidays and possibly conservatories and holiday homes.
Indeed.
For certain artists.
Here's a cracker. So, context. So, it would, again, it's a UK usage. 50 ways to leave your lover. A bit of that background on the creative idea for this was 50 ways to leave your broadband. You can already imagine.
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah, if you could just do that disdainful shudder again.
Is that what? Yeah, okay.
This is the world.
Right.
We live in. So once a creative idea, you can think it's song's going to work higher or lower.
Higher.
Yeah. You ready for a shock?
Wow.
Yeah.
Copyright only, £500,000.
Plus any lyric changes.
And yet those broadband companies...
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine's trying to bleed me dry.
Okay, last one, and this section.
English Rose. Jam. Fantastic song.
UK only, 1 year.
I'm just going to go 250,000, right, like I did at the start.
We're putting our value on, aren't we? Our perceived value. So this one. Yeah.
Oh, a snip, 85.
A snip at 85 grand. Interesting world. But then back to the power of music. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Some artists presumably say no to being used.
Yeah. Yeah, and some labels will be quite open and say, look, if the guys don't want to do it, they won't do it because they have enough cash. I think anything for AC/DC goes all the way to Angus. He has to see the creative brief and say, yeah or no, before you can have a real discussion about the cash. So I'd like to chuck in now a few top 3s. Top 3 albums. It
changes.
Yeah, of course it does. For today, for the Gas podcast. Chris.
Okay. What are yours?
Deflection. Well, I always have that one.
Yeah.
That's never really changed, and then the others kind of changed. But for me, in the last 20 years, I've had 3 bands which I've listened to. So as an older man, so the National and LCD.
Yeah.
And Interpol, but Interpol feeds my Joy Division punky thing, and
yeah.
I think the National still does my Smiths and lyrical cerebral thing.
Yeah.
And LCD feeds, as you mentioned earlier, the Talking Heads thing.
Yeah, All My Friends, I think, is one of the best songs of the century. I really do. The full version of that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Did you go see them last 2 years ago?
Never seen them, no. I think he's awesome. I've got to know Gary Newman a bit, and every time I see him, I ask him when he's going to team up with James Murphy, because I think that would be one hell of a collaboration. Yeah. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah. Are you biding time now to think of your top
Remain
three?
in Light, Talking Heads.
Thank you.
In no particular order, Talking Heads, Remain in Light. Big fan of John Lennon, the Plastic Ono Band album. And I'm wondering whether, what shall I say for my third? I'm wondering whether it's like maybe a more, no, I'm going to go Bowie, Ziggy Stardust.
Okay, cool. You talk about your podcast, How to DJ?
I was asked a couple of years ago to start a podcast, but with no clear idea as to what it should be. So I put it off and off and off until perhaps the most obvious idea came, and that was to talk to other DJs, radio DJs and club DJs. So it's broadly called How to DJ. And I get to talk to friends about how they do what they do. And it's inspiring. It's incredible hearing Norman Cook talk about how he got to be Fatboy Slim and how that journey, it is incredible, his story. Carl Cox, equally incredible. Oakenfold. Great radio presenters like Mark Radcliffe, you mentioned right at the top, Bob Harris, Jam Supernova, my Six Music colleague. I think most of what I've taken from doing the podcast is that hard work is the way you achieve the most. There are very few shortcuts and very few examples out of nearly 100 episodes of that podcast now where anyone has just got lucky. It is largely down to hard graft. In many cases, doing local radio for the radio presenters, doing local radio and working your way up. And for the club DJs, hoofing round massive record bags and nearly feeling over before actually even getting to play any of the songs.
That's good to hear. It's probably worth repeating, hard work and dedication.
Yeah, it's so inspiring doing the podcast. I absolutely love sitting down with each of these DJs. And I'm very pleased to say that some great names, some of whom I've mentioned, have agreed to come on. In fact, no one has said no.
Oh, you're a magnetic, easy to speak to, Chris. Probably share the same love and the same passion.
I don't know. Yes, I mean, it's an easy subject. Please, can you talk about yourself for an hour?
Talk about Graham Massey.
Graham.
What's that like?
So I went to his house to do that.
Saw your pics.
And it's just like a house of music. Like every room you walk in and there's like a wall of albums and there are instruments around, there are synths and keyboards and all of what you'd expect from 808 State. And Graham, he's kind of, you met him.
Yeah.
He's kind of incredulous about his success.
Probably only through a crowd back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was big.
Very much he was part of the Manchester scene. He didn't dwell too much on the hacienda, which is unusual for a DJ of his generation in the conversation that we had. But what I found most fascinating was Bjork and the work that he did with her, particularly, I guess, successful with writing and producing Army of Me. And Bjork staying in his spare bedroom, he just dropped that in. I was like, well, hang on, wait, did you just say Bjork stayed in your spare room? He said, yeah, that's where she stayed when she came over. And that was a regular thing.
Wow.
And he talks about her, and I don't know why Bjork shouldn't go swimming at Chorlton Baths, but that's what she used to do. So his stories about the success of 808 State and Pacific specifically, and how that's a piece of music that has just kept on giving. It's been reinvented and covered and reversioned so many times. From that to working with Bjork on the Pete Tong film soundtrack. Graham's like some guy. He's achieved so much, and he's so like unassuming, so modest. He's an absolute star, and he's now DJing with his son, which is interesting. I'm finding that a lot with the podcast, with How to DJ, finding a lot of next generations. Partly because, and it only dawned on me once the podcast was up and running, that I was speaking to really the first generation of club DJs at the older end. Yeah, absolutely. You know, Richard Serling, a great Northern Soul DJ, has been on. And perhaps they were the first generation of DJs that were actually playing ones and twos.
Yeah.
I think that's okay. It feels like a big statement, that. But I think it's probably accurate. Greg Wilson, another very early kind of, if you like, DJ. There's that clip of Greg Wilson with Jules Holland on TV, explaining to Jules Holland how to be a DJ.
How to count.
Yeah, well, he says you put one record on and then you put another one on. And that's his explanation. That is kind of how to be a
great
DJ.
if you keep it simple. I remember being, because I went to university up here, so when the Hacienda was started, but it wasn't this big thing, and I don't think it ever was. It was only at the end, and then it became retrospectively huge.
I went the one time, shit.
But being of my age, we went when this thing called the Temperance Club started. And you know, back when you used to get the flyers, which now became up, they were the thing through the 90s and the 90s where you'd be able to write down ABBA to Killing Joke, and you think, they will never fit. But they did, so it was this cool thing to do. We're going to play the Monkees, and then we're going to play the Cramps.
Yeah.
Wow. And then we got this thing for the Temperance Club. 1986, 87, and it was Dave Haslam at the Hacienda, and it was pretty much that, I'm just going to play whatever works. But it was groundbreakingly new, where you fast forward 30, 40 years, and that's still the thing, but he was doing it, and we were thinking, how's he got the audacity to play Big Mouth Strikes Again, and then Mr. Pharmacist, and then something by Prefab Sprout, some lullaby. But it worked. So that happened, and we're thinking, wow, what's he doing? But then we'd say, the guy's just playing one record after the other, and obviously he's got good taste, and he knows what to play to make us dance. Oh, is that it? Finished. And then about a year later, when the Chicago house scene was coming through, we went to see him again. I remember being sat behind and going, wow, he's like playing two records at the same time.
Mm.
And then, but that's all he's doing, playing two records at the same time. But people have probably just got better at doing that.
Yeah, Graham and that. So he talks about the Hacienda in a kind of, it was useful and it kind of did a thing back then. But, and his son now, what was the Hacienda, Dad? It's kind of cool though, seeing this next generation who are super hot DJs coming through.
Yeah. 5 minutes. What's your opinion of Manchester then, and the Manchester music and the wider world of music?
I think that Manchester is in great health. I think the Manchester music scene is as good as, maybe even better than ever. I really think Manchester's in a great place as a city, and culturally and specifically musically, I think it's a good time. A very good time.
Good to hear. And opinion on venues? I know they've got this perennial ticket prices versus paying artists.
Yeah, I don't see any reason at all why big venues shouldn't be supporting grassroots venues. That's where new artists come from. I think Manchester's got some of the best smaller grassroots venues in the country. They need to be protected. I have a night called Awesome Friends, which moves around, and I love it when it's at night and day. I love that venue so much. You can feel its history in the walls. Other venues in Manchester specifically that I love here, Band on the Wall, I think is very cool. Post-refit particularly, it's like a kind of cool New York bar come club. New Century is fantastic. And the big venues too. I love going to the AO Arena. I think the Co-op Live Arena is going to make a huge impact as long as they support the smaller venues, then they will have their big stars of the future.
Do you think we shout enough about it? Us, being you, including you as a Mancunian.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a bit of an adopted Mancunian. I'm not from the north, from Shropshire, and lived in London before moving here 10 or so years ago. And I am very proud to live in the northwest, and particularly in Manchester. And like I say, I think that there's a great scene here now. Maybe, I think you'd be hard pushed to argue that it's not better than ever. Partly because Johnny Marr is still doing his thing. New Order, one of my favourite bands in the world, are still very much doing their thing. And then so many new artists, a brilliant rapper called Wanda I'm really into right now, a new band called Maruja, just to name two.
Just to fold in our opinion then with our industry, sometimes we'll go to that London and that London will say, we make all the cool stuff. And you just, in the north in Manchester, make the other stuff.
Yeah, I'm not, I don't believe in that there's a particular divide between London and the rest of the country. I think that, not musically, I think that it's a fairly level playing field, albeit I think smaller venues find it harder to survive outside of London. But I don't think there's any difference in talent. I think that there has always been something in the water in Manchester. I do a lot of work at the Peace Hall in Halifax, and there are some incredible bands coming out of the Calder Valley in that very sort of small pocket of West Yorkshire. Bands like Working Men's Club, like the Oriels. There's a good scene in West Yorkshire too, and the Peace Hall. Wow, that is putting the North on the map as a music venue this summer. Bands like Blondie, like Michael Kiwanuka, like Streets, like Underworld, like Chic, like Grace Jones, are all playing at this venue in Halifax this summer.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool.
So we're in good shape.
I think so.
Good. And we're feeling quite positive about it.
Yeah, I'm more so now that I've said it all out loud.
Good. It's good to hear. So I think we're going to wrap up, but it would be remiss of me not to just pick your brains as though we are back on Mastermind with your beloved Shrewsbury Town. So I've got two questions for you. I hope you've not got eyesight because you'll have already seen the answers. But Shrewsbury Town were the third division champions in 1979, 1980. It was kind of when I was becoming aware of Gay Meadow and that team in blue and yellow. Who was the manager?
Would it have been Graham Turner?
He's correct. You can give a tick there, thank you.
Nice.
A slight sense of relief there. And another one here. This actually came from a brother. Brother's one of the finest quiz masters around. And he said, ask him, the leading goal scorer. Don't jump in if you're already there. But his claim to fame was he actually broke Dixie Dean's goal-scoring record.
Arthur Rowley.
It's correct, Chris. Passed on all that. Pick you up on what were you wrong on any of these? I'd have gone for Jack Duckworth, just to review and pick you up on that.
Yeah, I actually, that has come into my head since we've been talking as to whether I made the right choice there or not. But
that's the only thing I can unpick you on.
But I see Bill Roach in Sainsbury's where I live quite often, so I feel like an allegiance.
Yes, you got the friendship thing going through. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Gary.
Keep on spinning it.
You too.
Keep on keeping us smiling. And best of luck for whatever next year and the next 22 years.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks so much, mate.